The question is whether or not the Panthers are going to put him in situations where they're going to have to lean on him or be overly reliant on him. I think going into year 2 with this offense with North Turner, they're trying to take more responsibility off of Cam Newton and try to distribute that to the other guys that are on that offensive side of the ball. I mean, you got a top 5 running back in Christian McCaffrey. We'll see what happens with him. He's a guy that's capable of having 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving. They got Curtis Samuel, Torrey Smith, DJ Moore. They've got Greg Olsen. They've got weapons on the offensive side of the ball. But I think the most important thing that the Panthers did this offseason to help Cam is solidify that offensive line. They went out in free agency and they signed Matt Paradis, the center. I mean, a center is important in terms of being able to, understand the responsibilities, the offensive line, set the protection. That's something that you can take off of Cam Newton's plate. I think that's important. They re-signed tackle Darrell Williams, and they drafted Greg Little, offensive tackle from Ole Miss. So hopefully those guys are your bookends to set the edge of the pocket. So in teaching Cam Newton to operate from the pocket, I think it's important that that offensive line is a really good group. And if they can protect Cam Newton, I think that's a great place to start in terms of trying to make sure that Cam Newton is available for all 16 this season.
And that's exactly what they're trying to do. And having discussions with Eric Washington, he's their defensive coordinator. He's a friend of mine. And having discussion with him this summer, Cam coming back, he has seen Cam's development, not only off the field, but this started not with the surgery. It started when they hired North Turner. And, Jenna, you asked me, at some point, is Cam going to stop running the ball? He's going to stop putting himself in jeopardy. I said he started that last year. And you could see the North Turner, Scott Turner, his son, is the quarterback coach there with him. You could see the influence on Cam as far as his footwork being a little more crisp, his reads being a little more crisp. And before he was injured, he was passing at an all-time high as far as percentage last year. So he's making those steps accordingly. And this year, it's time to make that additional step with those additional, that offensive line. But they're playmakers. Cam has not had the best wide receiving core since he's been in the league.
And it hadn't been for lack of trying by Carolina. Kelvin Benjamin's first-round pick. They've spent high picks on a bunch of guys that haven't quite panned out the way they had hoped.
Now, I do believe DJ Moore is a difference maker. I do believe he is the next great receiver for Carolina since they got rid of Steve Smith. Curtis Samuel from Ohio State has been a disappointment.
Yes.
He was more of a running back, slot receiver, more of carrying the ball than catching the football. This should be his best season if he can avoid injury. So I expect Cam to continue to build, as I drop one, continue to build on what they had put in him as far as let's work on your footwork. Let's become more fundamental sound. And Cam even mentioned to me he wants to be a pocket passer.
Well, here's the thing, though, for Carolina, and there's no bigger Cam Newton fan than me. The best case scenario for them is that Cam does not return to MVP form because he doesn't have to. Because this team is not going to be the best version of themselves by trying to be a high-scoring, air-it-out offense. They will be the best version of themselves by trying to crush people with their front seven. They added Gerald McCoy. They have Bruce Irvin. We know how good Kuechly, when healthy, is. We know how good that linebacking core can be. Questions on the back end of it. I like Eric Reed. They have questions at corner. But being a defense that is a great run-stopping defense and an offense that even in 2019, where everyone airs it out, is a great rushing attack. To me, that is where Cam is maybe more judicious with how he runs, but he still is the most effective short yardage back in the league. We talked about earlier, I said best, and he has, because of the number count like you talked about, forget the raw skill on it, he's just the most effective at it. Maybe because they're at an advantage, because you have an extra guy to block with the running back. Whatever the reason is, that's the best version of themselves, where they don't have to be who they were the year he won MVP, where it was Ted getting 60-yard touchdowns, airing it out repeatedly. It was more almost a grittier, more physical brand of football.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. And think about who their head coach is. It's Ron Rivera, a defensive guy. The identity that he and Marty Herney are building is one where they're going to play bully ball, and their defense is going to be able to keep games close. I mean, if you look at over the 8 seasons Ron Rivera has been the head coach, 5 times they've had a top 10 defense. They made the playoffs 4 out of those 5 years. So, I mean, that's their formula for success. Now, where I will disagree with you is I don't think they are as susceptible on the back end as you might believe with the cornerback situation. Bradbury and Jackson aren't a bad cornerback tandem. Their biggest issue last year was putting pressure on the quarterback. They were 27th in sacks last year. And so I think that is why they decided to implement more elements of the 3-4 defense, why they drafted Brian Burns in the first round out of Florida State to play outside linebacker, also drafted Christian Miller from Alabama. They're going to try to heat it up with having more athletic guys on the edge. And then, of course, Gerald McCoy, Kiki Short, and then Dontari Poe being that three-man line in the middle. So I think that's the focus for them going into training camp. They're going to try to get back to playing really good defense, elite-level defense, and then they want their offense to complement that. But with all of that being said, they want Cam Newton to play within himself and utilize what they've put around him, not try to take as many chances. Because we've seen when Cam Newton isn't healthy, they're not a very good football team. They lost 7 games in a row last year after that injury, that hit that he took against Pittsburgh from T.J. Watt. So I think that has to be the mentality for the Carolina Panthers going into 2019.
One thing watch for them, and I know in talking to Eric Washington, they got a new owner. It's his second year. He came over after being a minority owner with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this organization is going to change to the analytics. And watch Cam Newton, 4th down, Ron Rivera, you talking about, what's his nickname? Riverboat Ron. But now they're going to have a little more calculated in the Riverboat Ron. So just watch how that plays out. Analytics, a huge part of the NBA. It's a part of the NFL, but we don't talk about it as much. Carolina, they are full-blown, let's go for it with the analytics and their coaching staff.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.